spoke a week or two ago, I wanted to start by sharing with people a little bit more of your backstory. So how did you get into music in the first place? Were you a music lover as a kid growing up?
Yeah, that video showed just a little bit of, I was like Rain Man for music back then. And just a huge hip hop head, like the kid and I knew every studio engineer, background singer. I just would, stay in the record stores buying records. But come from West Philly, West Philadelphia, born and raised. Came up with Will Smith and those guys. Used to carry crates of records for Jazzy Jeff. Slept on Jeff's couch. And they gave me this opportunity as a kid to kind of learn the business. Came out to L.A. When Will did Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I hated L.A. Ended up going back to the East Coast, and I started promoting parties and started promoting some concerts. And back then, the hip-hop shows couldn't get insurance. So, I would pay $2,500 for, like, Wu-Tang Clan to come down to Philly. And one of the shows was Notorious B.I.G., who was a no-show. And then I got on the phone and called myself cussing out his manager. And then the guy from the label gets on the phone, and he's like, we're still going to come down. And it was Puffy. And, and it was my first time really seeing, like, a young black guy. Puff was probably 24, 25 years old, but kind of commanded, this sort of respect and kind of ran the room. And I said, I want to come work for you. He said, well, your first job is to get me that girl from behind the bar. So I got Puffy, the girl from behind the bar. And then a few weeks later, I was interning at Bad Boy and worked there for about 5 years. Started my management company with a girl named Eve from my neighborhood. I was helping her find a manager, and she said, you might as well just do it. So that was my first time doing it. But what was great is working for Will, I was able to learn the business at 30,000 feet, but working for Puffy, I was really able to learn what true entrepreneurship was and like bootstrapping, hustling, boots on the ground. And I kind of took that scrappiness along with me. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about what you learned from Puffy during that time. I mean, if you were to go back and tell your younger self who hadn't yet worked with Puffy.
I learned abuse was number one.
Okay. Abuse is a power tool. Okay. But what else? What else makes Puffy as successful as he's been? Because it's easy for people to forget that he's not only had the success for a year or two, but now it's coming on 25 years.
No, you know what? It's like working for, I had the beauty of working for some really incredible people throughout my career. So anybody who knows Will Smith or whoever has worked with Will Smith knows Will is maniacal when it comes to working and getting things done. And I guess I was blessed with a bit of delusion as a kid, because it's, seeing one of your friends go from, the neighborhood to becoming one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Guys from our neighborhood who we were talking about this morning who used to like sing on the corners and in school talent shows and get pushed into the locker, became Boys to Men, and they broke every record in the world. And, the girl who used to sew our clothes or whatever moves to Atlanta and becomes Left Eye from TLC. So it was like this delusional thing that you could do anything and you could accomplish anything. So in my mind, it was like not even a question of if something could happen, right? So, and then working for Puff was the closest thing that I saw to myself in terms of, okay, you know what? Puff came from Harlem, didn't have a dad growing up, liked the kind of music that I liked, like it just was so similar to my trajectory. I kind of took to that. And then, and nobody could outwork him. Puff would party until 4 a.m., by the way. Like the driver would be asleep in the car and, Puff's like, okay, get up, we're going to the office, and still be the first guy in the office in the morning. And then, being blessed to work with Gaga had that same sort of maniacal work ethic too. So I got used to kind of working with people who just, were get-it-done people.
And where do you think, I once heard a venture capitalist, Bob Cagle, been very successful, everything from eBay to Jamba Juice, whole bunch of other things, say that when he has seen that kind of drive, it is both because someone's running towards something and because they're running away from something. Why do you
sound like my shrink?
Oh, is that right? I am him. I'm just... You're going to have to pay more. I'm going to start talking quietly.
We all got things to prove to our dads.
Keep Troy alive. I like that. Okay. But why? Why? I mean, why do you think? Because when people do have that kind of drive, because it's actually interesting that you say, because Bill Clinton says the same thing, that he fundamentally.
I don't have a plan B.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that's serious. So I got kicked out of 3 high schools. Going through high school, I dropped out in 11th grade, and my mom basically put me on a bus and dragged me, like literally I was in tears on this bus going to Port Deposit, Maryland to an old Navy base for Job Corps. And she said, you're going to get your GED. And once you get your GED, you do what you want. If you want to do that music stuff, you do what you, and that was it for me. And so I didn't get a high school diploma. I don't have a graduate degree. I don't have an MBA. I didn't have well-networked friends. I didn't have any of those things. So music literally was the only thing I knew how to do. And it was the only thing I loved more than anything else or whatever. So I think when you find that thing and, and plus, the other thing too, we grew up like broke. So, so I think my maniacal work ethic and this thing that I have just internalized is just about, I think it's gotten beyond, the last decade and a half, it's gotten beyond, okay, I just can't go back to I gotta go back. So it's like the shift of now it's time for me to share what I've gained.
Talk to me about that neighborhood because that's an extraordinary amount of success to happen in a small amount of time. And why do you think so much success happened from that West Philly neighborhood? Is it accidental? Is it what happened?
You know what? It's one of those things where you can't be what you can't see, right? Mm-hmm. And it only took a few people to if, I don't think, had I not met Will and James, my life would have been much different, right? Just statistically, it's a great chance that I would have ended up going through the prison system. I would have, all of the things that we read about and on Ozzy and all of these places. Nice plug,
I appreciate
right?
that.
Okay.
You did well. You did well. That. You got 2 more to go, but that's good. That was the first one. That was good. That was good. Okay.
But statistically, we know what that would have been. But I think it was it was an and this is what's different now. It was a level of optimism, right? Even if you listen to Biggie's music and Jay's music and the music of my era, it was an optimism to it. You know what I'm saying? It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Like if you listen to the words of Juicy, listen to the words. It was so optimistic. And when you listen to hip hop, it was about what we're gonna have, this aspiration, right? And so I think we kind of lost that sense of optimism. You know what I'm saying? So it's really now about how can we bring that optimism back?
Talk to me about when you made the transition from somebody working with Will Smith and James Lasseter and someone working with Puffy to being, if you will, a principal in your own right. Being a guy who people wanted to see, not people wanted to see so they could get to Puffy, people wanted to see so they could get to Will. How did that happen? How did you become a guy, the guy?
I just believe in do the work. So I didn't have that. It wasn't, my thing wasn't, I'm going to be the CEO of this company. Literally, when I had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and a guy pitched me on a business, and, it was like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to hire 15 people, da-da-da. And I said, whoa, let's back up. Let's think about, so when I started managing Eve, it was me in my apartment by myself, and I was the road manager, I was the manager, I was the secretary, I was the assistant, so I did everything. And then once it got to a level, then I had to bring somebody in because my schedule got a little too busy. Then I had to bring in a road manager because I had to run a business. So we got to the point where it turned into a business, and I wasn't faking it. Even with Gaga, in 07, I got completely wiped out when, right before I started Atom Factory. So broke. And
You're saying wiped out financially?
Financially,
how?
I had sold. So in 2004, I sold my company to Sanctuary, a publicly traded company out of the UK, and then I stayed on with that company for a couple of years. Then I said, you know what? I'm going to start something new. It's going to be me and Eve again. Got this office on Wilshire Boulevard, fly office, glass, and fly. And then one day she walked in and said, I'm going to go into another direction. And I didn't have a plan B. So, and anybody in here who knows, 2008, the world came crashing down. And luckily, a good friend of mine had called me and he said, look, I got this girl that, I want you to check out. I just heard her music on MySpace, flying her to LA the next day. And, the girl walks in, with these big black glasses, fishnet stockings, no pants, and says, hey, I'm Lady Gaga. And, and we grinded it out for a year and, and rebuilt. But I had to shut that office down. I literally, this is when you got good friends, because James Lasseter and Will Smith said, you know what, we got an empty office next to ours, shut your office down, just come and work out of here. And I didn't have an assistant. It was literally me and Gaga. And I built Atom Factory from that. So I'm a firm believer of you build off of the assets that you have, and then also the relationship that I had with the guy who brought me Gaga, Vincent Herbert. That was a 15-year relationship where we had never done business, but I always treated him good, and he always treated me good. And and so I think I built this extensive network since I was 16 years old. That's even more powerful to today.
How good an investor are you really? And I mean that respectfully.
No, that's a good question.
Knowing that lots of people who've attained a fame and a recognition in one arena have moved into the investment game along with lots of other angels, and so and they're super impressive names as you put up there, Pinterest and Warby Parker and Uber. But how good an investor are you really?
I never wake up in the morning and think I'm Mark Andreessen, right? I'm very clear on who I am and what my quality skill set is, right? I don't sing, I don't dance, I don't do choreography, I don't run quant stats, I don't code, but I know people. That's like my gift. That's the gift that God's given me. And I have an intuition for talent. And and it's transferred from artistic talent to entrepreneurial talent. And then also I've been blessed with these West Philly spidey senses that can smell bullshit a mile away. So you combine that, and so we've invested in about 80 companies over the last 4.5 years, and I've just kind of developed my own internal algorithm for what I believe are good companies. I surround myself with really great, intelligent people. I think Susie's in here right now, who's just joined us. But just an incredible venture partner, great, and also just understanding consumer behavior in a way. And I think being a talent manager and traveling the world for all of these years, you recognize consumer behavioral shifts, right? So if I'm in Korea, if I'm in Japan, if I'm in South Africa, if I'm in Germany, I'm seeing and being on the ground level and floors of concerts and kind of seeing how people dress in, all of these things, you learn things and you pick up on those things.
What have you learned about successful companies? Any common trends that now 80 companies in, you say, that's when I know this is going to win?
You know what? It's bold CEOs, and you got to, and
what does bold mean? Does bold mean loud? Does bold mean
you got to
try something different?
Yes, like, you know what? It's like when you're and I kind of look at guys like Jeff Bezos. I look at guys like Larry Page. Like, for Larry Page just to do what he just did with Google and say, fuck it, I'm calling this thing Alphabet. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And like that, like those kind of moves as a CEO, I know how difficult they are, especially being publicly traded and things like that. And sitting in the seat that you sit in every day, you got to make the hard decisions, right? So you got to cut off the noise from publicly traded markets. You got to cut off the noise from employees, customers, all of these things. And it's so difficult, you know what I'm saying? And so the companies I invest in, and this is my, part of the secret sauce, entrepreneurs don't look at me as a VC. They look at me as a peer. Because I know what keeps you up at night. We talk about it. We could sit around over a glass of wine or a beer or on a walk or whatever and kind of talk about those difficulties of being an entrepreneur and having to sit in that hot seat. That's a hot seat, right? And as the world is changing, working with CEOs who can see around that corner, kind of smell that change as it's coming, and so going back to what makes me, where I've been successful as an investor is a high level of curiosity. I remember being on the phone, driving on Santa Monica Boulevard, talking to Travis from Uber for the first time, when they're only in San Francisco as a black car company, and he's telling me literally everything that's happening right now in the transportation space. He told me this, you know what I'm saying? This is 2011, and talking to the Warby Parker guys, talking to Daniel Ek from Spotify when it was this little small company in the Nordic territories that was eradicating piracy, and I argued with Steve Jobs where he said streaming's never going to work. That, people want to own their music. People are never going to want to stream music. And this guy from this Nordic territories is telling me, no, streaming's the future. Nobody's going to care about ownership. It's going to be about access. So I think that, just having people who aren't afraid to go against what the status quo is important. And then being able to drive that Mack truck through a cul-de-sac to be able to get it done.
Who's your best counselor? Who's your best advisor?
It depends on what. I got some people who talk to me about love life. Some people who talk to me about business. But
let's start with love life. Who's good? Who's good?
No, so I'll narrow it down. There's one person, right? Like even a few weeks ago, I was in San Francisco. So James Lassiter has been like my big brother, father, consigliere, and I ran into him, and I've known him literally since I was 16 years old. I used to go, and the way I met Will and James, when I was 16-year-old, we had this little rap group called Too Many, right? And it was called Too Many because we only had enough for one of us. It was three of us. We always only had enough for one of us. So that's how we came up with the name. And but we said, if we meet Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, they're going to give us a record deal, right? So we would hop the train like illegally, like you wait for the train to come and you jump the turnstile as soon as the doors open. And we would go down to Delaware Avenue to Jazzy Jeff's recording studio every single week. We did it for almost 6 months, like to literally to where it would snow outside, and we would stand outside the studio, and Jazzy Jeff thought we were like these stalkers who were like, and he would never let us in. And then one day, our friends were recording in the studio, and they let us in, and we played our music, and we realized we sucked at that point, but it's the reason why I'm sitting up here talking, not singing or rapping, right? But James was in the room that day when I was 16, and he and Will saw some potential in me, and they took me under their wing. So, literally since that day, James has been my guy. So a few weeks ago, we're all in San Francisco, and we're up there for it's Will's birthday, and I was telling James a problem that about one of our mutual friends who did something and James sat there and chastised me, literally. By the way, in front of my wife and everything, it's all of us here, and he told me about myself, and he said, no, it's not his fault, it's your fault, because you shouldn't have done da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And you need friends like that. You know what I'm saying? It's a guy who doesn't want anything from me. Only thing he wants to see is me win, So he's been the most consistent person in my entire life. And I thank God for him, all the time.